Day one of legal tampering in NFL free agency saw a bang on Monday. Let's get going. Kirk Cousins, 4 years, $180 million, with 50 of that guaranteed via signing bonus. Kirk Cousins has amassed a lot of big deals in his time with Washington, Minnesota, and now Atlanta. He was number one on Pete Prisco's free agent list. Number two was Chris Jones, 29-year-old, inking a 5-year, $160 million deal to stay with the champs. $101 million of that is guaranteed. We're seeing a stage in the NFL where interior linemen are getting paid, and that's no different for number 4, Justin Madubuike in Baltimore. 4 years, $98 million. He's now the NFL's highest paid defensive tackle in terms of total contract value per Sport Track. Christian Wilkins coming in just outside of the top 10, but he's getting paid big time. 4 years, $110 million coming from Miami to Vegas. Dolphins and their fans, boy, it's coming hard today in terms of seeing all of their guys go. With Christian Wilkins, this was a little bit earlier in the process, but he is now a Las Vegas Raider. And the Philadelphia Eagles going in the division and picking up Saquon Barkley, 27-year-old running back, 3 years, a shade under $38 million with $26 million of that guaranteed. And with incentives, that deal for Saquon could get up to north of $46 million. We do have our free agency tracker up on CBSSports.com, but here's a list of notable free agents to change teams. Again, we gave you a feel that stayed with their teams. A reminder that all 32 teams can begin negotiations with their free agents starting today. Signings and trades finalized starting Wednesday, the official start of the new league year. What's good, streaming people? I'm Tommy Tran, joined by our NFL analysts Danny Kanell and Pete Prisco. These guys have been with us throughout the day. It's time to talk about winners and losers. Danny, I'm going to start with you first. The Falcons grabbing Kirk Cousins, your first winner today.
Yeah, Pete Prisco's number one free agent on the books. It's a quarterback-driven game, and I'm going to take Raheem Morris, the new coach, at his word. And it was pretty obvious the reason why the Falcons didn't have success the last couple of years. They had a major quarterback problem. So you take the command that came from Arthur Blank, the owner, that said, I don't care what it costs, go out and get me a quarterback, and they go out and get one who I think is consistently a top 10 quarterback in Kirk Cousins. And you're going to be able to plug him right into Zach Robinson's system without a big learning curve. He's going to come in and be able to go right away with the terminology, with the concepts, with Bijan Robinson in the backfield, who I think is going to really be a benefactor from this move. Also, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, a strong offensive line. And they move. I thought they would, but it has been confirmed. They are now the favorite to win the division. So I think the Falcons are the big winners from today.
Yeah, it's a great move for the Falcons. I mean, you have to get a starting quarterback. He's the best available quarterback on the market. There are concerns, though. He's 36. He's coming off a torn Achilles. Everybody acts like automatically you're just back to being the same guy. I know he doesn't move like some of the runaround quarterbacks we see these days, but he's still got to be able to plant that foot and be able to move around a little bit. So there is some concern there. But Falcons had to make a move. They spent a boatload to get him. Now the question becomes, can he win a big game in Atlanta?
That is the big question as we're taking a look at deals and extensions in per DK. Again, Atlanta, the betting favorite, minus about 105 or 110. The reigning division champs in the Bucks are coming in second at 3-1. Of course, they also got a deal with Baker Mayfield recently, 3 years for about $100 million there. Let's get to one of the losers here, Pete Prisco. Boy, Justin Fields coming into today looked like he had some possible destinations, but with everything that we've been seeing so far, those options seem to be dwindling by the minute.
Yeah, and that's the kind of the word you heard around the league was that there wasn't a great market for Justin Fields. And you mentioned it with Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta. That's his hometown. He thought there was some chance he would go there. And now the Raiders, they actually paid Gardner Minshew a 2-year, $25 million deal rather than make a move to go get Justin Fields. So it's not a good opportunity for him out there. There's nothing really in terms of a starting quarterback that you can say, okay, he's going to be that team's guy. So I think he might have to go the backup route. Now the Bears have to decide, do they keep him as a backup or a potential challenger to the guy they do pick at the top of the draft, probably Caleb Williams, or do they let him go, trade him to like a place like Indianapolis with no Minshew there and with Anthony Richardson having some injury issues, particularly as a rookie? I think that could be a possibility as well. But certainly a big loser in this has been Justin Fields.
I totally agree, Pete. I mean, those two situations would have been great if you look at Atlanta and Pittsburgh. Either he goes home or he goes to a really good team that's got a stable organization. Now we're talking about backup destinations or places potentially to start, but you're probably going to have to win. And some of them are complete rebuilds when you look at them. So I had the Titans as a potential landing spot. I don't know exactly how the Titans feel about Will Levis, but if they're not 100% sold, bring in a competition. Again, that's a tough road for Justin Fields. I had the Broncos. The Broncos are still in need of a quarterback now. What are they going to do post Russell Wilson? That'd be a major project. Does he fit into Sean Payton's system as somebody who won a lot with Drew Brees, who is, pinpoint accuracy from the pocket? That doesn't really fit Fields' game. The Vikings potentially another one. Is he going to be able to just plug and play in that system? I don't know. Or potentially the Patriots. Let's say the Patriots are not in love with the third option of these quarterbacks. I think it's always interesting because we assume they're going to go young with that movement, but maybe they go with Justin Fields where at least the floor isn't going to completely bottom out. But in any case, none of these situations look as good as the spots that he was potentially rumored to be going to.
Guys, it's interesting, the last two really big quarterback classes, 2018 and then 2021. If we talk about 2021, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, and Mac Jones, and it looks like Trevor Lawrence is the only one that's going to get a big extension coming into this offseason, which is interesting to see. Danny, we're going to get to you with some other winners here. Pittsburgh, why are the Steelers winners?
I think they're getting a winning quarterback in Russell Wilson. Now, there's debate over, how much does he have left in the tank? Do the distractions, his makeup, is it annoying? Is it something that doesn't lead? This offense lacked leadership last year. They just didn't have it. The George Pickens situation cropped up. No one really spoke up about it. I think Russell Wilson steps in, and he is a leader. Whether you like the way he leads or not is up to you. But I do think Mike Tomlin will be able to rein in some of the off-the-field stuff, really help him in the process here. And I think he comes in with a chip on his shoulder, and most importantly, I think he still has some pretty good elite quarterback skills left. He threw for 26 touchdowns passes last year. That's double what Kenny Pickett has given you in his first 2 years in the league. So you're going to get solid, consistent play. And if you get the upside, maybe there's a chance you can get 30-plus touchdowns still in the tank with him, with a young receiver like George Pickens in the running game, which you're going to have with two solid backs. So I think the Steelers get a quarterback they can win with, which is a huge upgrade from what they've had.
Where has he ever been a leader? In both places he's been, Danny. The Seahawks got tired of him, didn't really like him. And in Denver, he was far from being a leader. He's never been a leader. He's a guy that goes, plays quarterback, makes a couple statements after games. Let's ride, go Hawks, or whatever he used to say, go Bronx. And that's it. He's not a leader, and that's a problem. And I think, look, he's not the same player he used to be. He struggled the last 2 years. He leaves clean pockets. He never steps up in the pocket. It wouldn't shock me to see Pickett beat him out, and that would be funny if it indeed happened.
Oh, we have to have a side bet on that, Pete, because there is no chance they're starting Kenny Pickett if Russell Wilson's there and they're both healthy. There's zero chance. Russell Wilson is the guy.
We'll see, because competition is a good thing.
By the way, Danny, you want final word in terms of the leader thing that Pete was talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. You are a quarterback. By default, you're a leader. And I always think it's interesting that guys maybe don't like him personally, and oftentimes because they made him look bad. He is a first in, last out type of leader, which can rub some guys the wrong way. Clearly, the guys he won with in Seattle didn't love it, because sometimes it makes them look bad. I think there's a lot of that's gone on with Seattle. In Denver, there was a void of leadership because there was uncertainty who the coach was. But I haven't heard many players with Denver trash him. So I still think if he comes in humbly to Pittsburgh, he can win over that locker room.
All right, let's move on. First off, if you're new to CBS Sports HQ, welcome. Secondly, Pete Prisco doesn't really like running backs. However, Pete Prisco going to say running backs win for the most part. But in true Pete Prisco fashion, there does have to be a running back loser. Prisco, please explain.
Well, you look at the early deals, and a lot of these running backs are getting paid. I mean, Saquon Barkley got a relatively big contract for a running back. And Josh Jacobs got a big contract for a running back from, the Green Bay Packers. And then you look across the league, and Pollard is signing a deal with the Titans. Running backs were signed early and often, and I'm a little surprised by it. The contracts aren't great. They're not like they used to be for running backs. But by the standards of recent years, they're pretty good contracts. The big loser, Derrick Henry. What is he going to get on the market now? When you look around this league, he's a big back, but he has a lot of wear and tear on that body, and it started to show up. So I think the running backs were winners, but right now, Derrick Henry's one of the losers.
Derrick Henry had been talked about, linked with potentially Baltimore. We'll see if that still ends up maybe happening there for King Henry. Let's get to another winner in Pete Prisco's eyes, and it's going to be Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator with the Vikings. Pete, given everything that Minnesota was able to do today, really stood out to you, didn't it?
Yeah, and they didn't spend a boatload of individual money on one guy, which is probably what they would have done on Danielle Hunter if they kept him. You know, he's still in play. He's not gone yet, but it looks unlikely. What they did is they pieced together 3 guys that I think will help their defense and guys that they can move around. You know, Jonathan Grenard, the pass rusher from the Texans, will be a guy you plug and play at defensive end, can get up the field, plays the run well. Then they went out and got Andrew Van Ginkel from the Miami Dolphins, and he's one of those guys that can play outside, can play inside. You can move him around. Flores likes to move his guys all around. And then Blake Cashman kind of resurrected his career with the Houston Texans. He's from Minnesota. In fact, he went to high school where the Vikings used to practice. He's another guy that will give him chess piece options. I think Brian Flores has been real successful, and the Vikings have been real successful with what they've done on defense. And by the way, since their quarterback is gone, they might have to be really good on defense this year.
That's what I was going to say, is they might be on the field for quite a while if they don't figure out the quarterback position, which will put more pressure on them. But I think Brian Flores has done a nice job already here, and with the talent he's working with, I think that defense will be much improved, but the record may not display it.
Minnesota going through a lot of changes, both departures and arrivals on that front. You mentioned Van Ginkel, just part of what is a mass exodus down in Miami, Pete Prisco here. The good news, I guess, if you were Chris Greer, you drafted all these guys. The bad news is you're unable to keep most of these guys.
Yeah, the defense particularly has been hit hard. I mean, when you look at that defense, you lose Christian Wilkins on the inside. You let Baker go, the linebacker, a week ago, in part because of his contract was too high. You lose Van Ginkel. I mean, on it goes. And Brandon Jones, the safety, out the door as well. So they've suffered some big hits. Offensively, you lose Robert Hunt, the starting right guard, which will also be impacted because he's a big physical guy on that offensive line. Miami is in a situation where they have to free up the money to pay their quarterback. And when you pay your quarterback, you're going to see guys leave, and you're going to have to draft well and really replace them, much like the Rams did. The Rams won a Super Bowl when they went for it with the high-priced quarterback and the high-priced defense and Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Well, they won a Super Bowl, so it was worth it. Miami didn't, so right now they're going to feel the effects of that.
Yeah, they're feeling the effects of the guys they've already paid, too. Teron Armstead, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Ramsey, Chubb. Like, they've paid a lot of guys recently, and they're starting to pay for it now, in large part because you mentioned what they're going to do with Tua. So I totally agree with you. The Dolphins have a lot of questions to answer, a lot of important pieces they're going to have to replace, and guys they can't keep around, which is why I have Christian Wilkins as one of the big winners, because I do think he's a quality player that deserved a handsome payday. Dolphins couldn't afford it and pay Tua, so he goes to Las Vegas, and paired with a defensive-minded coach who, by all accounts, is very player-friendly, and Antonio Pierce, who's a defensive-minded guy who really wants to embrace that physicality on the defensive line to the tune of 4 years, $110 million for Christian Wilkins. So he breaks the bank. He goes with a defensive-minded coach, where I think that's going to be a priority. No state income tax to throw it in there, just like he had in Florida with the Dolphins. So I think Christian Wilkins is a big winner in this one, too.
You know, guys, the AFC East will be interesting because both the Dolphins and the Bills not only had to do cap gymnastics, they had to do triage in some cases to try to get to that number, Danny, because that's what we're seeing there with Brandon Beane and company up there in Orchard Park.
Yeah, that's why I think the Bills, I mean, we've talked a lot about this window of this Bills team. Whether they win or that window is closed, this iteration of the Bills is done. They're going to have a completely new looking team as far as the leadership goes. And a lot of that has to do with the cap casualties we've seen because they had to clear this space. And really the only thing they have to show is Deion Dawkins coming back, which is a nice signing. But I also wonder about what impact that has on a team's culture inside the locker room. When you see those cuts, you realize the harsh reality of the business. And oftentimes in a locker room, you can look around, and this has been a winning organization recently, but you look around and you lose a little bit of trust and faith in the front office and the ownership being like, man, if they can cut that many pieces, they can cut me too. And I don't know if that's the healthiest mindset to have for an organization.
But the window is still wide open. And why is the window still wide open? You have a franchise quarterback. I mean, they came within a whisker of beating the Chiefs, who went on to win the Super Bowl, despite the fact their defense was decimated by injuries. All year long, they kept having guys go in and out, and they just couldn't stay healthy on defense, and yet they were a bad throw away. A guy gets hurt. In fact, it's kind of funny because it was Dawkins' guy who hit Josh Allen. If he doesn't run into him, it's a touchdown in the back of the end zone, and they advance. I don't know if they would have beat the Ravens the way they were constructed, but that window's still wide open in large part because Josh Allen is a star.
And despite all that, Buffalo is still getting a lot of respect in the betting market. At FanDuel, still the favorites there in the AFC East. Danny Kanell, Pete Prisco, guys, great stuff today. Thanks for breaking down winners and losers here from the first day of legal tampering, 48 hours ahead of the official start of the new league year and free agency. If you want to stay up to date on everything happening, go to the CBS Sports app.